Everyone said, don't go near her, but here I am, sitting with you.
They warned him before the transport doors even opened. Don't go near her. Don't look at her for too long. Don't speak unless spoken to. The warnings followed him like cold air, heavy and quiet. As the human delegation stepped into the outpost hall, the station floated at the edge of known space, a neutral place where humans and alien factions met only when they had no other choice. Metal floors reflected pale lights, and the walls hummed with low energy. He was an ordinary human, by every visible measure. No armor, no rank markings that impressed anyone here. Just a plain jacket, worn boots, and calm eyes that observed more than they reacted. He had been sent because humans were good at surviving uncomfortable places, not because anyone expected greatness. Across the hall, she sat alone. The alien warrior woman was impossible to ignore. She was taller than most beings in the room, her posture straight, even while seated. Her armor looked grown rather than built. Dark plates layered like living stone. Old scars crossed her exposed arms, not hidden, not polished away. Every other species kept their distance. This was the one they feared. Her kind had a reputation written in blood across several systems. Warriors who did not retreat, commanders who never begged. When her species entered a war, planets learned new meanings of silence. That was why the humans were told clearly, do not approach her, do not sit near her, do not invite attention. The human heard all of this, and nodded when it was said. He did not argue. He did not ask questions, but something about the way she sat caught his attention. She was not watching the room, she was watching the floor. Her hands rested calmly on her knees, fingers relaxed, not ready for violence. She looked like someone waiting, not hunting. The meeting was delayed. Voices echoed as representatives argued behind sealed doors. Time stretched thin, the hall filled with tension and boredom. Humans were taught to wait quietly, to make themselves small when needed. To survive by blending into the background, the human walked toward an empty bench. He did not realize where it was until he was almost there. The bench was beside her. A few heads turned. Some beings shifted uncomfortably. A quiet alarm pulsed through the room. Not official, but emotional. He hesitated for half a second. Long enough to notice her shadow fall across the floor beside him. Long enough to remember every warning. Then he sat down. No challenge, no greeting, just a human sitting where space was. Available for several breaths. Nothing happened. No weapons activated. No threat displays lit the air. The warrior woman slowly turned her head. Her eyes were not glowing, not burning. They were dark, deep, and focused. She studied him, the way soldiers study terrain, carefully, patiently, without judgment. He kept his hands visible, relaxed on his legs. He did not stare back. He did not look away either. Around them, the room felt frozen. Then, without warning, she shifted. Her armor plates moved softly as she turned fully toward him, and she sat closer, closing the small gap. Between them, gasps spread through the hall. Fear rippled like static. The human felt it. The weight of her presence, the strength held behind stillness. She spoke first, her voice low and controlled. You were told not to sit here? He nodded once. Calm. I was told many things, he said, simply. That answer surprised her. Not because it was clever, but because it was honest. Silence followed, thick and uncertain. She looked at him again, more carefully now. You are not afraid, she said. Not a question. I am, the human replied. But fear doesn't always mean stop. Something changed then, subtle but real. Her shoulders relaxed just a fraction. Her hand rested openly against the bench, no longer ready to strike. Across the hall, observers whispered, this was not how this was supposed to go. For a moment, dear listeners, if you enjoy slow tension, deep mystery, and human strength shown through quiet choices, consider subscribing to this channel. More stories like this are coming. The warrior woman leaned back slightly. You sit with courage, she said, or foolishness. Sometimes they are the same, he answered, her lips curved. Not a smile, but not anger either. It was something older, something rare. The doors to the council chamber remained closed, but something else had opened. A connection no one expected, a moment that would echo far beyond this station. Because when the most feared warrior in the hall chose to sit beside a human, the universe quietly began to pay attention. The silence after her words did not feel empty. It felt heavy, like a storm, waiting for permission to fall. The human did not move. He stayed seated, breathing slow, as if this moment mattered more than the meeting behind the sealed doors. Around them, the hall slowly came back to life. But no one truly relaxed. The warrior woman looked forward again, but her attention stayed on him. You chose this seat, knowing the risk, she said. Humans usually avoid risk they do not understand. He considered her words before answering. Humans avoid risk they cannot survive, he said. Not all risk is the same. That made her turn again. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. "You speak as if you know survival," she said. "I do," the human replied. "Just not in the way you do." This time, she studied his face longer. She was used to fear. It had many shapes: trembling voices, fast heartbeats, desperate lies. But his fear was quiet, controlled, accepted. She had seen that kind before, usually on battlefields. Moments before, someone stood their ground. "You are not a soldier," she said. "Certain. No armor, no weapon, no command marks." "No," he agreed. "I'm something else." "Explain," she said. "I listen." The human answered. That answer confused her more than any challenge would have. Listening was not a skill valued in war councils. It was not something her people rewarded around them. Several delegates pretended not to watch, but every sense in the room was focused on this bench, on the human who ignored fear, on the warrior who did not crush him. She shifted again, crossing one armored leg over the other. "You were warned about me," she said. "What were you told?" "That you destroy worlds," the human replied, honestly. "That your people leave nothing behind when they fight. That sitting near you was a mistake. And yet," she said, softly, "and yet," he continued, "you looked like someone waiting, not someone hunting." Her fingers tightened slightly, then relaxed. "That is an observant thing to say," she replied. The meeting delay stretched on. No one dared interrupt them. No security moved closer, because no one knew if stepping in would make things worse. "You are waiting for orders." But human said, carefully, "Orders you do not agree with." This time, her reaction was instant. Her head snapped toward him. The air around her seemed to sharpen. "You assume too much," she warned. "I listen," he repeated, calmly. "Your armor is sealed for battle, but your stance is not. You're ready to leave, not to fight." Silence pressed down again, thicker than before. She exhaled slowly, a long, controlled breath. "Humans are dangerous in quiet ways," she said. "They observe without drawing attention, and warriors notice," he replied. Something unseen shifted between them. Not trust. Not yet, but recognition. Across the hall, a smaller alien leaned toward another and whispered, "This is wrong. It should not be happening." The council doors finally flickered with light, still closed, but active. The delay was not accidental. "They are arguing about whether to use force," the warrior woman said suddenly. "Your species stands in the way." The human's expression did not change. "Force is easier than understanding," he replied. "They are considering ending negotiations." She continued, "and beginning something final." He nodded slowly. "That would be a mistake." "Why?" she asked, testing him. "Because humans don't shine at the start of conflict," he said. "We shine when everything goes wrong." Her gaze hardened. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a warning," he corrected, "not from power, but from experience." The lights in the hall dimmed slightly. An alert passed through the station systems, subtle but real. Several delegates stiffened. The warrior woman stood up smoothly. Her full height drew gasps again. Armor shifting with quiet precision. The human did not stand. He looked up at her, calmly. "They're about to make a decision," she said, "one that will force me to choose." "Between orders and judgment," he said. "Yes," she replied. She looked down at him for a long moment, then did something no one expected. She offered him her hand, not as a command, not as a threat, but as an invitation. "Come," she said. "If they decide wrong, you should not be sitting alone." Around them, the room froze again. A human walking beside her would be seen as a signal, a dangerous one. The human took her hand, steady and firm. "Then let's make sure they understand what humans really are." As they walked toward the sealed doors together, fear spread, curiosity burned. And somewhere deep in the station, the universe leaned closer, knowing something important was about to begin. The hall did not breathe again until they reached the center. Every step they took together felt louder than it should have been. A human and a feared alien warrior moving side by side was not part of any plan. The sealed doors loomed ahead, tall and marked with symbols of neutral law. Behind them sat leaders who decided the fate of systems, with calm voices and distant logic. None of them expected this. The warrior woman released his hand before they reached the doors. Not because she feared contact, but because this next moment belonged to choice, not connection. "You should stay here," she said quietly. "What happens next may not be safe." The human shook his head once. "I was sent to observe," he replied, "and I've learned enough to know silence would be worse." Her eyes searched his face again, this time not as terrain, but as something unfamiliar. "You understand that if you stand with me," she said, "you may be seen as my ally." "I already am," he answered, gently, "at least in this moment." That answer stayed with her as the doors finally opened. Light spilled out, bright and cold. The council chamber revealed itself. Rows of elevated seats formed a circle. Different species sat in rigid positions, their expressions controlled. At the center was an empty space, meant for speakers, not symbols. When the warrior woman stepped forward, the chamber stirred. Several leaders straightened. Some leaned back, uncomfortable. Then the human stepped forward to not ahead of her, not behind her, but beside her. Murmurs spread instantly. This was not protocol. This was not acceptable. A tall figure with mirrored skin spoke first. This human was not summoned. He walks by my permission. The warrior woman replied, her voice steady, strong, and by his own courage. The word courage caused a ripple. Some scoffed silently. Others listened more closely. This council debates war, she continued, while pretending peace still stands. That is not your concern. Another voice cut in, sharp and cold. It is always my concern, she replied. When war is suggested without understanding the cost, the human felt the pressure in the room increase. Eyes turned toward him, measuring, judging, dismissing. A voice said, pointing, explain why you stand here. The human stepped forward half a pace, not to challenge, but to be heard. I stand here because fear is being mistaken for strength, he said calmly, and because humans have learned what happens when councils stop listening. Soft laughter echoed from one side of the chamber. You are small, a delegate said. Your species is young. Yes, the human agreed, and that is why we adapt. The warrior woman watched him closely now. She had faced champions, tyrants, monsters, but never someone who stood unarmed in a room full of power and spoke without shaking. They think you are weak, she said, quietly, so only he could hear. They always do, he replied. At first, the council leader raised a hand. Your words change nothing, they said. Our projections show human resistance would collapse. The human looked around the chamber. At the start, he said, yes. A pause followed, uncomfortable, uncertain. You fight with numbers and weapons, the human continued. Humans fight with endurance, with memory, with refusal. To stop, the warrior woman felt something stir inside her chest, a feeling she had not known since her earliest battles. Respect. She stepped forward again. This human speaks truth, she said. You measure victory by conquest, but humans measure it by survival. The chamber grew louder, voices overlapping. This meeting was unraveling. An alert flashed along. The walls, red light, subtle but dangerous, external fleets were repositioning. They are preparing, the warrior woman said. They will force this decision. The human felt it then. The moment tightening like a wire about to snap. If war begins, he said clearly, you will face humans who will not quit, who will learn your tactics, who will turn loss into knowledge. Silence slammed into the chamber. The council leader studied him carefully. Now, you are certain, they said. I am experienced, the human replied. The warrior woman turned toward him fully, and for the first time, she bowed her head slightly. It was not submission, it was acknowledgement. In that moment, she made her choice, not for her people, not for orders, but for truth. And as alarms deep within, the station began to rise. She placed herself between the council and the human, ready to defend not a species, but an idea, that humans were not weak, they were just waiting. The alarms did not scream yet. They whispered, a low pulse through the station walls, a warning meant for leaders, not crowds. The council chamber lights shifted from white to pale amber, emergency, discussion mode. Every delegate understood what that meant. The warrior woman stood firm between the human and the council. Her armor adjusted automatically, plates tightening, power systems waking, not for attack, for protection. This is highly inappropriate, one council member said, voice sharp. You are overstepping your authority. I am fulfilling it, she replied. My duty is to prevent unnecessary war. The human felt the weight of her choice. If this went wrong, she would be blamed first. A warrior who defied consensus rarely survived politically or physically. You are stalling. Another delegate said, human resistance projections are clear. Projections fail when variables change, the human said calmly, and humans are always the variable you forget. A ripple of irritation moved through the chamber. They did not like uncertainty. They preferred clean outcomes. One of the elders leaned forward, eyes glowing faintly. Explain, they demanded. The human took a breath. Steady and slow. You look at strength as power, he said. Size, weapons, fleets. Humans learned long ago that power breaks. He turned slightly, addressing the full circle. But stubbornness survives. Some laughed quietly. Others did not. We adapt, he continued. When we lose, we learn. When we are pushed, we push back harder. You may win battles, but humans outlast wars. The warrior woman felt a strange calm spread through her. She had fought species that burned bright and vanished. She had crushed empires that thought themselves eternal. What he said matched her memories too well. Outside the station, distant engines flared. Fleet movement confirmed. The decision window was closing. They are forcing our hand, she said aloud. Someone wants this conflict. The council leader stiffened. That is speculation. No, she replied. Well, that is experience. The human noticed something then, a pattern in the chamber. Some delegates avoided eye contact. Some seemed almost eager. Not everyone here wants peace, he said quietly, but everyone will suffer from war. That sentence landed harder than any threat. The alarms deepened in tone. One step closer to full alert. A security officer entered the chamber. Hesitant, council, they announced. External forces are requesting immediate confirmation. The room filled with tension. This was the moment history often broke. The warrior woman turned to the human. Voice low. If they choose war, she said, I will be ordered to lead the first strike. And if you refuse, he asked, I become a traitor. She answered, simply. He nodded, understanding the cost. Then let me give them something else to fear. She looked at him sharply. What do you mean? The human stepped forward, past her shielded stance. The room reacted instantly, voices rising. Enough, he said, not loud, but firm. You want certainty? I will give it to you. The council fell silent. If you attack humanity, he continued, you will not face a united fleet. You will face something worse. Confusion rippled. You will face millions of small decisions, he said, independent minds, improvised defenses, refusal to surrender. He looked directly at the leaders now. You will never know when the war's over. That did it. Unease spread. Openly, the warrior woman felt it too. Not fear, but realization. Humans were not predictable. They were resilient chaos. The council leader raised a hand slowly. You offer no guarantees, they said. No, the human replied. I offer consequences. The alarms paused. A suspended moment. Outside, fleets held position, waiting. The warrior woman exhaled slowly. This is your last chance, she said to the council. Choose peace. The chamber lights flickered. The station itself seemed to hold its breath. And in that fragile silence, everyone understood one thing clearly. If war began now, it would not be short, it would not be clean, and it would not end the way they expected. The council did not answer immediately. Silence stretched longer than comfort. Aloud, long enough for doubt to grow, long enough for fear to choose sides. The human felt the weight of the pause. This was where speeches usually failed, where logic bent under pressure. One of the elder delegates shifted forward. Their voice was slower now. Careful, you speak of chaos as if it were strategy. The human nodded slightly. For humans, it is survival. The warrior woman remained still, but her internal systems tracked every movement in the chamber, heart rates rising, defensive postures tightening, too many signs of leaders preparing to justify violence. You assume humans will resist forever, another delegate said. Every species breaks. Yes, the human replied. Humans break too, but we don't stay broken. That answer unsettled them, not because it was dramatic, but because it carried truth without pride. Outside the station, a new signal arrived. Fleet commanders requesting authorization. The room lights pulsed softly in response. They want a decision, the warrior woman said, and they want it now. The council leader folded their hands. This meeting was meant to prevent war, they said. Yet war moves closer, because fear is speaking louder than reason, the human answered. The leader turned their gaze toward him fully. You place great faith in endurance. No, the human said. I place faith in memory. That caught their attention. Humans remember who stood with them, he continued, and who stood against them. We remember kindness longer than hatred, but we never forget betrayal. The warrior woman felt that land deep. She had seen survivors rebuild worlds. She had also seen them return centuries later, quiet, patient, relentless. A sudden transmission cut into the chamber systems. Unauthorized, urgent. A holographic image flared to life. A forward scout captain. Voice tense. Council. They said, human. Colonies are not mobilizing. Confusion spread instantly. They are not retreating either. The captain continued. They are fortifying. The human closed his eyes briefly. They've noticed, he said softly. The warrior woman turned toward him. So quickly, she murmured. We watched the quiet changes, he replied. Not the announcements. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Fortifying meant preparation. Preparation meant resolve. They are ready, someone whispered. The council leader raised their voice sharply. Silence. The room obeyed, but uneasily, the leader looked back at the human. If we stand down now, they said, we appear weak. No, the human replied, you appear wise. The warrior woman stepped forward again. This is the moment, she said. Either we choose dialogue, or we create an enemy that will outlive us. The alarms dropped another level, no longer warning, now countdown. The human felt it, time narrowing. This was where belief mattered more than argument. He spoke again, softer this time. Humans don't need victory, he said. We need reason. Give us that, and we will give you peace. The council leader hesitated. Their reflection flickered in the polished chamber floor. Power weighed against consequence. Then something unexpected happened. A junior delegate stood, their species small, rarely heard. We have studied human conflicts, they said, voice shaking. They are correct. Gasps spread. Breaking rank was dangerous. When humans are attacked, the delegate continued, they adapt. When ignored, they endure. When respected, they cooperate. The warrior woman felt something shift. The balance. Finally, the council leader looked around, seeing hesitation where confidence once lived. The alarms paused again. Fleet commanders awaiting orders that did not come. Slowly, the leader exhaled. We will delay authorization, they announced. Negotiations will continue. The room froze, then reacted, some relieved, some furious. The warrior woman closed her eyes briefly. Relief washed through her systems. The human remained still, not celebrating, knowing this was not the end. Outside, fleets powered down incrementally, not retreating, but waiting. The council leader looked at the human one last time. This peace, they said, you will be held responsible for it. The human nodded. I understand. As they left the chamber together, the warrior woman spoke quietly. You changed the course of this station? No, he replied. I just reminded them what humans do best. And what is that? She asked. He looked ahead, toward the long corridor beyond the chamber. We survived long enough to be understood. The corridor outside the council chamber felt longer than before. Not because of distance, but because everything had changed. The warrior woman walked beside the human again, her pace measured. Guards watched them closely now. Not hostile, not respectful, just uncertain. That delay will not last forever, she said quietly. Some in that room will push again. I know, the human replied. Peace is rarely loud. They reached an observation bay overlooking the station's outer ring. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent barrier. Cold, distant, patient. She stopped there, turning toward him. You placed yourself at the center of something dangerous, she said. Why? The human leaned lightly against the railing. Because humans don't survive by avoiding danger, he answered. We survive by standing where it matters. She considered that. Her people valued decisive strikes, clear enemies, clear victories. Humans confused her. They endured. They waited. They spoke softly until it mattered. You are not trained for this, she said. No combat implants. No command. Authority. No, he agreed. But humans train in failure. Before she could respond, the station lights flickered sharply. Once, twice, then alarms sounded, louder now. No longer restrained, unauthorized fleet movement, a distant voice announced. External weapons charging. The warrior woman's posture changed instantly. Armor systems flared to full readiness. They're defying the delay, she said. Faction has decided to act. Anyway, the human's expression remained calm. But not all of them, he said. How can you be sure? She asked. Because if they were united, he replied, the attack would already be underway. The station shuddered lightly, a warning tremor, not a strike. They want to force fear, she said, to make us react. And humans don't, the human replied, not the way they expect. A communications panel activated nearby, emergency channels opening, voices overlapping, confused, tense, reports flooded in, human colonies holding position, civilian evac already complete, defense grids active but restrained. They prepared faster than projected, an officer said in disbelief. The warrior woman felt something deep, settle into certainty. This was not bravado. This was readiness earned through history. If they fire, she said, turning to him, I will be ordered to respond. And if you do, he asked gently, I become the first strike. She answered, and the first casualty of peace. The human looked at her then, truly looked. You don't want to be remembered as a weapon, he said. No, she admitted. I want to be remembered as someone who chose. Another tremor shook the station, stronger this time. External weapons locking, targeting systems active. The human stepped toward the communication console. They're watching, he said. All of them. You cannot address them, she warned. That authority is taken, he said calmly, activating the channel. The warrior woman stiffened. This was dangerous beyond measure. The human's voice carried across open frequencies. Clear, steady, human. This is a human observer speaking, he said. To all vessels in range, we are aware of your movements. Silence followed, heavy and sharp. You fear what humans might become, he continued, but fear is not strategy. It's surrender. The warrior woman watched data streams spike. Attention captured, not through force, but through courage. If you fire, the human said, you will not break us. You will define yourselves. A pause. Longer than before, we are not advancing. he said. We are not retreating, we are waiting. External weapon signatures began to fluctuate. Target locks, hesitating. The warrior woman felt it, the moment tipping. Humans don't need to threaten. The human finished. We just need to last. The channel closed automatically. The station held its breath. Then, one by one, external weapons powered down. Not all, but enough. The alarms softened, from crisis to caution. The warrior woman turned to him slowly. You just spoke to fleets, she said, as if they were people. They are, he replied. Fear doesn't remove that. She studied him in silence, then placed a hand over her chest, a gesture from her people. One reserved for warriors who earned respect without battle. Whatever happens next, she said, history will remember this moment. The human looked out at the stars again. Humans will remember it too, he said, and that matters, but far beyond the station, in the dark between systems, not everyone powered down, and the final test was still coming. The station did not celebrate, it waited. Silence returned slowly, uneasy, and fragile. The kind of silence that knew it might not last. Outside the viewing barrier, most fleets had powered down, not retreating, not advancing, hovering in a careful balance. The warrior woman stood still, her armor gradually lowering from combat readiness. But her eyes remained sharp, focused beyond the stars, searching for what others could not see. Someone is still watching, she said quietly. The human nodded. They always are. A final transmission arrived, narrowband and encrypted. Not a threat, not a demand, a request. The council leader's voice echoed through the corridor speakers. Controlled but strained. We require your presence. Again, they said, both of you. The warrior woman glanced at the human. This will not be friendly, she warned. It doesn't need to be, he replied. It just needs to be honest. They returned to the chamber together, not as symbols now, but as consequences. The council looked different, less confident, less united. You interfered, the leader said. You disrupted a decision. Yes, the human replied, and you avoided a disaster. The room shifted uncomfortably. A rogue faction has withdrawn, the leader continued, but not without conditions. The warrior woman stiffened. They want assurances, she said. They want limits placed on humans. The leader replied. Expansion, research, alliances. The human stepped forward, calm as ever. You fear what you cannot control, he said. But humans are not weapons to be contained. They are persistent, another delegate muttered. Yes, the human agreed. And persistence builds civilizations. The warrior woman felt it then. The final shape of this moment. This was no longer about war. It was about respect. She placed herself beside the human again, deliberate, visible, undeniable. My people will not enforce restrictions based on fear, she said. If you choose that path, you choose division. The council leader studied her closely. You would risk your standing, they said. I already did, she replied, and I stand by it. Silence followed, heavy but different now. Not tension, acceptance. The leader exhaled slowly. Then this council will recognize humanity as an enduring power, they said. Not dominant, not inferior, but permanent. The words echoed. They mattered. The human closed his eyes. Briefly, not in relief, but in understanding, outside the station. Fleets adjusted formation, this time pulling back. Truly, a signal spreading system by system. The danger passed, not erased, but delayed into something manageable. Later, in a quieter corridor, the warrior woman stopped walking. She turned to the human. You changed how they see your species? She said. No, he replied. I reminded them how humans survived. And how is that? She asked. He thought. For a moment, we stay, he said, when others expect us to break. She placed her hand over her chest again, the warrior's gesture. Then know this, she said. My people will remember this day. And your kind? The human smiled. Faintly, humans remember too. They parted at the transport gate. No promises made, none needed. As the human vessel pulled away from the station, the universe felt different, not safer, but more aware, because somewhere among the stars, a truth had settled quietly into history. Humans did not conquer through force. They did not rule through fear. They endured. They adapted. They stayed long enough to be understood, and that was what truly frightened the galaxy.